There we go. So, Wolf, can you help us pray, please?
Okay. Thank you, Father, for this time together. We ask that your Spirit join us and guide us today in our study of your word. Let it remove any veil that we have or any misunderstanding. Let us see your will and your guidance through the teachings of Moses and the questions we ask and the word that we study. We also ask for protection for all our family and the loved ones and all those that believe in you. We ask protection and guidance for your land of Israel, for your IDF, for the hostages. We ask that everybody's returned and safe. And again, that the veil is lifted and everybody can see that your son, Yeshua, is the Mashiach, and that we need to look to you for everything. And you are the source of our life, of our healing, of everything that we have comes from you. So guide us today. Let us hear your voice. Let us be obedient. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wolf. So let's start with today's class, session number 20, and we will discuss about the Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, which is an amazing book, by the way. The book of Proverbs, let me just share the screen here. Un momento. Here we go. Ahí está. So the book of Proverbs in Hebrew, the Hebrew word for Proverbs is Mishlei, written there in the slide. So what is it with the book of Mishlei? Well, what is a proverb, by the way? What is a proverb? Well, a proverb is a wise saying about practical matters of life. Those are the proverbs, just wise sayings. So wisdom is a very important here in the book of Proverbs. And there was this millionaire, I just forgot his name. There was this millionaire that once said a few years ago that he said, "I became rich because I read the Proverbs every day." So that was an amazing statement of this guy. I can't remember his name now. He said, "I just became rich by putting into practice all the Proverbs that are in the Bible." So that was a very, very interesting comment that he made about the book of Proverbs, because it's wisdom, practical wisdom in life that we all require. And that's the book of Proverbs. Let's see one part of the book of Proverbs, a few verses here. Trust in Jehovah with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear Jehovah and turn away from evil. That would be the book of Mishlei, chapter 3, verses 5 to 7. And also a very interesting thing about the book of Proverbs is that there are 31 chapters in this book. So some of the months of the year have 31 days. So it's about one chapter of the book of Proverbs per day. Let's say, for example, today is day 18 of February. So today we would read chapter 18 of the book of Proverbs. So that's a very practical way of getting close to the book of Proverbs. Just reading every day the book of Proverbs. Every day, each chapter, and maybe, and just maybe, we can become more wise than we are now, if we are wise at all. So what is a proverb? The word Mishlei, the Hebrew word Mishlei, has its roots in the Hebrew word mashal, and just mashal is translated as a saying, a short statement, a saying. Like, for example, in English, you have quite short sayings, wisdom sayings, like better later than never, That's a quick statement, a quick proverb in English language. So a mashal would be like that. a mashal. And Mishlei is just a plural word, all the combination of these short sayings. It is a short and popular statement that expresses a general truth. And actually, in English, you have quite interesting proverbs or mashal. That actually, my girls that are mostly Rachel, the oldest one, she's learning a little bit of English, and she said, "Dad, can you explain to me the expression, the English expression, break your leg or break a leg when somebody is just about to go into the stage?" And I said, "Well, that's interesting. I really don't have a clue why they say break a leg." And we investigated a little bit, but it's interesting. It's a short saying about something that refers to something else. So the book of Proverbs is like that. We have to think what it's really saying here in this proverb. So let's see the generalities of the book of Mishlei or Proverbs. So most commonly known as Mishlei Shlomo or Proverbs of Solomon. But not all the Proverbs are written by Solomon, but it's commonly or traditionally known as the Proverbs of Solomon or Mishlei Shlomo, Mishlei Shlomo. So who wrote the book of Mishlei? Most of it it's written by Shlomo himself, but there are some others. There's a proverb of Agur. Maybe the last proverb is Bathsheba, his mother. So it's a very interesting book, but most of it was written by Shlomo. And just as we reviewed the last week of the book of Psalms, being known as our daily devotion, which connects with our vertical relationship with the Lord, the book of Proverbs or the book of Mishlei, it's our horizontal relationships, the human to human relationships, how to apply the book of Torah, the instructions of the Lord, in a practical way. So the book of Proverbs helps us to do that. How to do the practical part of the Torah, not just theory, but how to do it. How to do it in horizontal relationships. That means with other people. So Torah is the theory, and Proverbs is the practice. Where is this book written? In Israel, somewhere between 970 and maybe up to the 690 BC. That's BC or before Messiah. So there's an A and an M there. It's not translated. That's antes del Mesías, but that's before Christ. And why? What's the reason, or how does this book of Proverbs help us? So can you open your Bible in the book of Proverbs, and let's read chapter 1, verses 1 to 7. Actually, right there in the book is the purpose of this book. So Proverbs 1, verses 1 to 7. Here we go. So the Proverbs of Shlomo, the son of David, king of Israel, are for learning about wisdom and discipline, for understanding words expressing deep insight, for gaining an intelligently disciplined life, doing what is right, just, and fair, for endowing with caution those who don't think, and the young person with knowledge and discretion. Someone who is already wise will hear and learn still more. Someone who already understands will gain the ability to counsel well. He will understand proverbs, obscure expressions, the sayings and riddles of the wise. The fear of Adonai is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. So here in just a few verses, there's the purpose of this book. So let's, in order for study better the book of Mishlei, we can divide it into, I think, 4 different parts. Yeah, 4. The first part would be the Proverbs chapter 1 to 9, which talk about wisdom knowledge, and prudence. And actually, let us jump all the way to the chapter 8, which is such an amazing proverb because in the Jewish thought, in chapters 8, we can find a very interesting approach of wisdom associated with the Torah, the instruction. But also, we as believers in Messiah, we can also find a very good approach here to the Messiah being the source of wisdom. So, for Jewish people, the Torah is wisdom, and we as believers in Messiah, the Messiah is the wisdom. So, we can see that here the Messiah is the Torah because both are wisdom. So if you can help us, I don't know, Mr. Steve, can you help us read chapter 8? And there will be some verses that relate to the wisdom and the Torah. Okay? And the Messiah, of course. Please.
All right. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads she takes her stand, beside the gates in front of the town. At the entrance of the portal she cries aloud, to you, O men, I call. O my cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. From my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance in the way of evil, and the perverted speech I hate. I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight and I have strength. But me, kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By my princes rule, and nobles all who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of the righteousness of righteousness, in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me, and filling their treasuries. The Lord possessed me the first of his acts. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there was no springs abounding with water. Before the mountains, I had been shaped. Before the hills, I was brought forth. Before he had made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world, when he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, when he made the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, when he assigned the sea its limits, so the waters might not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundation of the earth. Then I was beside him, like a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and delighting in the children of man. And now, O sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise, and do not neglect it. Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my doors. Whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me injures himself. All who hate me love death.
Thank you. We can see here, thank you, Steve. So we can see here the importance of understanding that Wisdom is well, here we can say wisdom was there before all creation. So we can see that the Torah was there before creation, and the Messiah is here before the creation. So this is an amazing chapter about wisdom, the Torah, and the Messiah. So yeah, thank you, Steve, for the reading. Let's jump to the second part of the book of Proverbs. So that was Proverb number 8. Let's jump to the second part, which are Proverbs of Solomon and Wisdom of the Wise. That would contain the chapters Proverbs 10 to 24. So, Wolf, can you help us read? Maybe, I don't know, choose a number between 10 to 24. Pick a number.
The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish son is a grief to his mother. Treasures of wickedness and ill-gotten gains do not profit, but righteousness and moral integrity in daily life rescues from death. The Lord will not allow the righteous to hunger, but he will reject and cast away the craving of the wicked. Poor is he who works with a negligent and idle hand, but the hand of the diligent make him rich. He who gathers during summer and takes advantage of his opportunities is a son who acts wisely. But he who sleeps during the harvest and ignores the moment of opportunity is a son who acts shamefully. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The memory of the righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked will rot. The wise in heart will accept and obey commands, but the babbling fool will come to ruin. He who walks in integrity and with moral character walks securely, but he who takes a crooked way will be discovered and punished. He who winks the eye causes trouble, and the babbling fool will come to ruin. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, and his words of wisdom are a source of blessing. But the mouth of the wicked conceals violence and evil. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers and overwhelms all transgressions. On the lips of the discerning, wisdom is found, but discipline and the rod for the back of one who is without common sense and understanding. Wise men store up and treasure knowledge, but with the mouth of the foolish, ruin is at hand. The rich man's wealth is his fortress, the ruin of the poor is their poverty. The wages of righteousness is life, the income of the wicked, punishment. He who learns from instruction and correction is on the path of life, but he who ignores and refuses correction goes off course. He who hides hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool. When there are many words, transgression and offense are unavoidable. But he who controls his lips and keeps thoughtful silence is wise. The tongue of the righteous is like precious silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. The lips of the righteous feed and guide many, but fools die for lack of understanding. The blessing of the Lord brings riches, and he adds no sorrow to it. Engaging in evil is like sport to the fool, but to the man of understanding, wisdom brings joy. What the wicked fears will come upon him, but the desires of the righteous will be granted. When the whirlwind passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous has everlasting foundation. Like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the lazy one to those who send him to work. The fear of the Lord prolongs one's life, but the years of the wicked will be shortened. The hope of the righteous is joy, but the expectation of the wicked comes to nothing. The way of the Lord is a stronghold to the upright, but it is ruin to those who do evil. The righteous will never be shaken, but the wicked will not inhabit the earth. The mouth of the righteous flows with wisdom, but the perverted tongue will be cut out. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked knows what is perverted.
Thank you, Wolf. Such an amazing thing to read them in English. I've never read them in English before, so it's very interesting to grasp the understanding of the wisdom of the Proverbs. Is such an amazing thing. Let's jump to the third part of the book of Proverbs or Mishlei. That would be more Proverbs of Solomon, but these ones are compiled by Hezekiah or Ezekiel. Once thought to be lost, but found by Ezekiel. So he added this to the book of Proverbs. Let's read one of the Proverbs from 25 to 29. I don't know if Todd or Chuck can help us read one of it. I'm not sure if Chuck can speak, but maybe Todd. We still have one more section left. So, oh, Chuck, there he is.
Here I am.
Welcome, Chuck. Can you help us with one chapter of the book of Proverbs between 25 to 29? Just pick your favorite one.
Yes, Proverb 26.
Go to 26. Just a moment, please. There we go. Go for it. Thank you.
Like snow in summer or rain at harvest time, so honor for a fool is out of place. Like a fluttering sparrow or a flying swallow, an undeserved curse will come home to roost. A whip for a horse, a bridle for a donkey, and a rod for the back of fools. Don't answer a fool in terms of his folly, or you will be descending to his level. But answer a fool as his folly deserves, so that he won't think he is wise. Telling a message to a fool or sending him out is like cutting off one's feet and drinking violence. The legs of the disabled hang limp and useless. Likewise, a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Like one who ties a stone to the sling is he who gives honor to a fool. Like a thorn branch in the hand of a drunk is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. A master can make anything, but hiring a fool is like hiring some passerby. Just as a dog returns to his vomit, a fool repeats his folly. Do you see someone who thinks himself wise? There is more hope for a fool than for him. The lazy person says, "There's a lion in the streets. A lion is roaming loose out there." The door turns on its hinges, and the lazy man on his bed. The lazy person buries his hand in the dish, but is too tired to return it to his mouth. A lazy man is wiser in his own view than 7 who can answer with sense. Like someone who grabs a dog by the ears is a passerby who mixes in a fight not his own. Like a madman shooting deadly arrows and firebrands is one who deceives another, then says, "It was just a joke." If there's no wood, the fire goes out. If nobody gossips, contention stops. As coals are to embers and wood to fire, is a quarrelsome person to kindling strife. A slanderer's words are tasty morals. They slide right down into the belly. Like silver slag overlaid in a clay pot are lips that burn, with friendship over a hating heart. He who hates may hide it with his speech, but inside he harbors deceit. He may speak pleasantly, but don't trust him, for 7 abominations are in his heart. His hatred may be concealed by deceit, but his wickedness will be revealed in the assembly. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. and a stone will come back on the one who starts it rolling. A lying tongue hates its victims, and a fluttering mouth causes ruin.
Interesting, very interesting Proverbs. Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, amazing the amount of wisdom that we can acquire if we just think a little bit for what it is being stated here. So yeah, we just don't have to read them, but think of them and how can we apply it to our lives. Okay, and the last part of this book of Mishlei, it's the last two proverbs, the words and advice from others, which are Agur, and Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. I don't know if Todd, can you speak? Maybe you can read us one of the proverbs, either 30 or 31. Just
Yeah, how about 31? Does that work for you?
oh, yeah, that works for me.
Okay. The words of King Lemuel, the prophecy in which his mother disciplined him. No, my son, no, my son of my womb, no, son of my vows. Don't give your strength to women, or your ways to which destroys kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel, not for kings to drink wine. It's not for rulers to ask, where can I find strong liquor? For they may drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the justice due to the poor. Give strong liquor to the ones who is perishing, wine to the deeply depressed. Let him drink, forget his poverty, and cease to remember his troubles. Speak up for those who can't speak for themselves, for the rights of all who need an advocate. Speak up, judge righteously, defend the cause of the poor and the needy. Who can find a capable wife? Her value is far beyond that of pearls. Her husband trusts her from his heart, and she will prove a great asset to him. She works to bring him good and not harm all the days of her life. She procures a supply of wool and flax and works with willing hands. She's like those merchant vessels, bringing her food from far away. It's still dark when she rises to give food to her household and orders to the young women serving her. She considers a field, then buys it, and from her earnings she plants a vineyard. She gathers her strength around her and throws herself into her work. She sees that her business affairs go well. Her lamp stays lit at night. She puts her hands to the staff with the flax. Her fingers hold the spinning rod. She reaches out to embrace the poor and opens her arms to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, since all of them are doubly clothed. She makes her own quilts. She's clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is known at the city gates when he sits with the leaders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She supplies the merchants with sashes. Clothed with strength and dignity, she can laugh at the days to come. When she opens her mouth, and she speaks wisely. On her tongue is loving instruction. She watches how things go in her house, not eating the bread of idleness. Her children arise. They make her happy. Her husband too, and he praises her. Many women have done wonderful things, but you surpass them all. Charm can lie, beauty can vanish, but a woman who fears Adonai should be praised. Give her a share in what she produces. Let her work speak her praises. Let her work speak her praises at the city gates.
Thank you, Todd. I haven't seen this before, and actually I have to review this in a Hebrew Bible. But here, at least in the CJB, the Complete Jewish Bible, from this section, which is verse number 10, there's the whole Hebrew alphabet here on the side, the Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, all the Hebrew letters. And I'm just wondering if each of these verses start with this Hebrew letter itself, which would be an amazing thing. Because, like, for example, do you remember Psalm 119, right? Psalm 119, that is written in this Hebrew acrostic. All the first verses are with the letter Aleph, then letter Bet, and so on. I don't know if this one is something like that. I never seen this in a Spanish Bible. Maybe in the Hebrew Bible it's like that. But whenever we find these letters, the Hebrew letters, it's a quick reference for us to connect it with the Torah. But I will have to review that. I'm just thinking about it. I'll let you know when I find out. Okay, so this is the book of Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, and let's jump to some conclusions of this book. Proverbs begin with the advice of the father. Chapter number 1 is the advice of a father for a king or to a young man, and it ends with the advices from a mother. This last chapter, chapter 31, is the advice of a mother, also for the king. And Solomon, although he went away for a time, he had so many wives and very rich and all the horses and doing things wrongfully, he fulfilled with his life what it is written, that if we fathers instruct our children in his ways, in the Lord's way, even when they are old, they will not depart from him. So this happened also to Solomon. Remember that even at the end of the life, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, which we will just read next week. So he fulfilled this. So the Proverbs are very helpful also for instructing our kids, our children. So yeah, these are very important Proverbs. So we can grasp a lot of wisdom from here and just share it with others. And there's actually two verses actually that speak with as the relationship of a father and how to correct a kid, how to correct a children. And if you can help me, maybe Steve, can you help me read Proverbs 13:24?
Yep. 13:24. Just 24.
Yes, please.
Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him.
Okay, so can you help us understand this proverb? Can you make a commentary on this proverb?
Well, the way I understand it would be that whoever doesn't discipline his son, that'd be whoever spares the rod hates his son. So what the way I understand that first section is that whoever doesn't discipline, and again, it seems maybe harshly the way he's explaining it there. And then it goes on to say, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. So it's a one is saying, whoever doesn't discipline doesn't really love his son, but the one that disciplines does love his son.
Okay, let me read it for you in this CJB, the Complete Jewish Bible. Let me read this proverb and let me know your thoughts. He who fails to use a stick hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline him. What do you think about it?
Well, like I said, the first part is like whoever fails to hit their son with a stick or a rod is failing to show true love but yeah, that's the way I would interpret it.
Actually, let me share you a thing. We went to an amazing library, as you remember, here in the city of Orizaba. This amazing library, you remember, they have Hebrew Bibles, they have calendars, they have books, they have t-shirts, they have a lot of things, Bible related stuff. And I don't know if you remember, but they were there. This long sticks with this proverb written into it. I don't know if you saw them. They
We
are
didn't we
there.
did we didn't share that little section, Moy.
Well, those are some call them the holy sticks, no, or holy staffs. And actually,
Hey,
some
Moy,
people, yes,
I hate to cut in, but do they sell them in packs of like, 4 or 5?
okay, yeah,
Can you buy them? Do you get a discount if you get
yeah,
more of
you
them?
can, you can buy them like that.
Chuck,
Yeah.
you're in the jungle. You just have to go out to your front yard and pick a couple of trees there, buddy.
But they don't have the proverb written on them. That's
They
the
don't have the
problem.
proverb. You need the proverb. The proverb is needed in order for making it holy, a holy discipline. Okay, no, actually, I know people that actually buy them and hit their sons with it. And you know what happens at the end? That, well, I have seen these grown up now adults that have been hit with this kind of sticks, and some of them actually hate the Bible now because they say my mom or dad used the Bible in order to hit me. So no, it was no, that was not good. I hate the Bible now, and that was, oh man, isn't this proverb the other way? Isn't this supposed to get him closer to the Bible? What happened here? Todd, you have raised your hand. Yes, you have a commentary on this. Just can you open up your mic? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing it on my phone today because, and I don't know where all the buttons are on the phone version. But so regarding what you said, how you read it in the complete Jewish Bible when it refers to the word stick, right? You ever heard the term that's a good rule of thumb?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that kind of, from what I understand, comes from this verse, because back in the day they said that, for example, if you're disciplining your child, or I think it was back in the Roman times, I'm not real sure, they said where it was okay to hit your wife, right? They said you never use a stick bigger than the size of your thumb. That's where it came from, from what I understand. But the commentary, not the commentary, but the way it's written is, I agree with how Steve put it, is if you have to discipline your children, but you also have to be careful in how you do it, because it also says you're not to exasperate your children. And by using the ones with the proverbs written on it, I understand why, because then kids become what's the word I'm looking for? Rebellious against the word. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
So discipline has to be done wisely and carefully.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. We will see another proverb, actually trying to understand this. Actually, Todd, can you help me out with Proverb 23, verses 13 and 14, please? Proverbs 23. And if you have the CJV, actually, that would be a good thing. Proverbs 23, 13 and 14.
13 and 14. 13 starts, it says, don't withhold discipline from the child. If you beat him with a stick, he won't die. If you beat him with a stick, you will save him from Sheol.
So what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, first off, why do they say use a stick, right? And here's my thought on that. Using a stick, the father's hand and the mother's hand is supposed to be open to embrace, to hold, love. So you don't want to strike with your hand. That's why they say use a stick. So, and I think it's done that way for multiple reasons, and because, one, they see the stick, they know what's coming. You know what I mean? If you just walk up and you're going to hit the kid with your hand, they don't know that something's wrong until it's too late, and then it turns ugly quick, for example. But discipline's not going to kill the child. It's going to make him. It's going to teach the child that he's done wrong. And that's what it
Okay.
says. It says, don't withhold discipline. If you beat him with a stick, he won't die. No, he's going to be upset. The child's going to be upset for a while. Then the child, then later you have to explain why you had to do what you did, right? And then it says, if you beat him with a stick, you'll save him from You'll save him from the troubles he's going to have later in life by not learning what to do and what not to do.
So, well, according to what we just read here in the Bible, it would be, how do you say, approved by the Bible that a father beats a kid with a stick, right? So that would be okay.
It doesn't say beat. There's a difference between beating somebody and disciplining somebody.
Well, here
Beating the
we
word
just
beat.
read is beating the. If you beat him with a stick, what do you think about beating a kid with a stick?
Well, yeah, I guess the way it's written here, you could say that, yeah.
So according to the Bible or what we just read, it is okay and approved for a father or mother to beat a kid, his children with a stick, right?
That's kind of what it's saying. It's saying, but you have to. Okay, let's do it this way, all right? Look up that word in Hebrew, beat, and let's go to the Hebrew definition of it instead of the Greek.
Okay. Actually, it
Oh, no,
means
you
the
do
same
that.
thing. It's beating. Yeah, no, I've just read it. That's why I bring it up to the class because I just read it and actually it says beat. So interesting, right? Interesting. Okay,
Hey, Moy,
let's.
if I could
Yes, Chuck.
chime
Yes.
in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is I have to admit, I love these parts of the Bible. I don't want anybody to get me wrong yet. Okay. Mainly because I think there's the most misunderstood. Like stoning, for example. Okay. Yes, the Torah says that if our neighbor is caught in a certain act, then we should go out and stone them. Okay. But it also says that they should be judged. And it also says that I'm not a judge. So, you have to take everything in the full context, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So one person's idea of being beat, maybe the parents of the person that you were talking about who were beat with a stick with a proverb on it. I would assume that those parents probably did not have very good or very healthy upbringings. So their personal idea of what beat was is far different than my personal idea of beat. For example, I'll explain how I always would reprimand and discipline my children from the time that they were in diapers. And this is the way it goes. It's pretty simple. Child does something wrong. I would sit them on my right knee, always on my right knee, and I would wait for them to calm down, and then we would talk about what they did wrong, make sure that they understood that it was wrong. We'd talk about ways that they could do it better the next time. A lot of times, depending on what it was, maybe they had done something wrong to someone else. I would ask them how they felt if that had happened to them, and I would explain, and I would ask them what they would want to happen if somebody had done that to them. Okay. And we'd go through this little process, and I'd always make sure that my children were very nice and calm and extremely relaxed before we went to the next portion. And the next portion would be, okay, well, you know what happens then? And I would slowly lean them over my left knee. So they've gone from sitting on my right knee to being leaned over my left knee. Okay. And I would give them this tiniest little swat on the butt. Psychologically, what would happen, they would react as if you had beat them with a stick. It was just incredible. But it would make an impact without doing any real physical damage or pain or any of those things. And in their emotions, in their minds, all it would take was that tiny little smack, and they'd know that they were disciplined, right?
I know.
And it worked amazing for me as a father, because now I have a son. You know Brandon. Okay, I could probably fit in his pocket. If I had beat him with a stick for 15 years, he's 17 now, he'd probably be beating me by now. That probably wouldn't have worked out so well. But to this day, he remembers that discipline growing up. And even having a 17-year-old, somewhat sometimes rebellious 17-year-old, as we all are at that age, his level of discipline and respect for his father and mother are just so much higher than I see other children of their age. And I think it has a lot to do with the way they were disciplined as kids. The message got through, because if you're actually causing pain to a child's not going to remember anything that he's supposed to have learned. They're just going to remember the pain and the fact that they're mad with you. So that would be one thing. And the other thing, and I'm not sure of this, I believe I heard this from one of Joseph's teachings years ago, that the stick he relates to the Torah itself. You should discipline with the Torah. I'm not sure what your feeling on that is or not, because I could never find an actual translation or a part of the Bible that actually explained it that way.
Okay, thank you for sharing thing. But the thing is, well, you were just such a gentleman with your kids. But I can tell you here, I have seen small kids being beaten by their own fathers, and they just end up hating them, hating the Bible, turning away from God. Such a bad thing, because not all of the fathers are like you. Hopefully, they were as wise, a little bit as wise as you were with your children. But no, yeah, I've seen terrible things being justified with these verses that we just read, and we will jump into the Torah thing in a moment, uh, because
Moises.
we really need to know this. Yes, Wolf?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something out. But if I go back to 13:24, there's a little bit of nuance in there that people may just gloss over. It says, "But he who loves him disciplines and trains him diligently." That's important, and appropriately, with wisdom and love. So again, it's context. It's what is the situation. So we talk about the Torah being a path that's supposed to keep us safe. And if you stay within the borders of the path, then you avoid bad things happening. And I think the stick is a little bit like Todd said. It's a symbol. It's symbolic of, hey, you've strayed off the path, and the further you stray off the path, the consequences are much more dire. And so you're trying to protect, and you can do that with the gentle pat and the loving conversation. But it talks about that diligence. I mean, if you think back to King David was an awful father. He just basically let his kids do whatever they wanted, and they were raping and killing and doing whatever. So the diligence means that you have to be involved and you have to be present. You have to constantly be making small adjustments so that you don't have to make a big adjustment. But I think the stick is symbolic. And I remember an example was a mother who used a wooden spoon to discipline her son. Now, did she ever beat him with it? Most likely not. It was a gentle tap, much like Chuck and his gentle tap. But the symbol of the spoon was a symbol of, hey, listen, you've strayed off the path, and the further you stray off the path, the consequences, there is consequence in life. So you're training your children also that there's consequence for going off the path. So, she probably never had to use a spoon. She said, do I need to get Mr. Spoon? And right away, that kind of brought everything to mind that, hey, I've gone off the path. for my own safety, I better get back on the path, whether it's the spoon or the real world consequences that could come. So in some ways it's symbolic, but again, it also says with wisdom and love. You use wisdom and love. Yeah, the intention is not to beat them with a stick, because that's not wisdom and that's not love. And that's also most likely a parent who is not diligent and appropriate, because if you're diligent, you don't have to make those big corrections. If you're involved and you're watching, you do a little corrections, and little corrections get them back on the path. The beating with a stick is somebody who's not involved and all of a sudden wakes up, oh yeah, I'm just going to do a quick fix here with a stick and a beating, which is not appropriate, not diligent, and is not using wisdom and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolf, and thank you also for triggering childhood traumas on myself, because I just remembered my mom used this gigantic spoon of wood to beat me out. So yeah, you just brought these childhood traumas, and thank you for that, because we will speak about some of those in a moment. But yeah, first of all, because I know this is getting recorded and this is going to YouTube and this is going to maybe some people, and that might be helpful too for them. First, we have to think how to properly and with wisdom apply the proverbs that we are reading, even those like this one, like Chuck was saying about stoning, about beating with a stick. So we have to think first, what is the proper way to apply these verses? And also what we are learning here is that definitely the Hebrew language is needed in order to understand better what is written in the Bible. We cannot take it directly as it is and use it as a justification to apply them just when we feel that is properly or not properly applied. So because as I told you, I've known people that use this as a justification to beat their kids because it's on the Bible. I have to correct them. I don't want their souls to be lost in hell. That's why I beat them out like that. Yeah, we have to just think a little bit more, and of course using the Hebrew language in order to properly understand verses like this one. The word that is mistranslated is not the word beating, is the word stick. Because if you find it, if you look it up in your, even in the Strong's dictionary, or you can use other dictionaries as well, the word used for stick, it's a very interesting word because it's the H7626, which is the word shevet. Shevet in Hebrew. The word shevet is most commonly used or most commonly translated, number one, as the word tribe in English, like the 12 tribes of Israel. That would be the 12 shevets of Israel. But it is also used for the scepter of a king or the staff of a shepherd. And that changes completely the understanding of these verses. And we can no longer use it as a justification to beat our kids. Let me share with you a more proper translation of these verses. And that's the connection as the stick being the Torah, the stick being the scepter of the king, which, you know, a king would have a scepter and give his instructions or commands with the scepter. That would be the Torah. Or the staff of a shepherd, the staff that he uses to guide and correct the flock. Yeah, that would be the Torah too. So the proper translation, well, I will just suggest this to you to look it up for yourselves and to understand what it means. So Proverbs 13:24 would be read better like this: he who takes away the shevet, the scepter or the staff of the king, from his son, hates him. So if you don't use the Torah, if you don't use the scepter of the king to correct your child, you actually hate him. So he who loves his kid corrects him early. So is using the instructions, not beating your kid with a stick. And Proverbs 23 verses 13 and 14 would be read better like this. Do not stop the boy's correction. If you win with the staff or the scepter, the shevet, he will not die. Actually, the word here is better understood as winning, because if you're in a race, you say, let me beat that guy. It's not that you are actually beating the guy, right? It's that you are winning over that guy. So do not stop the boy's correction if you win with the staff. If you win with the Torah correction, he will not die. And with the shevet, with the king's scepter, you will free their existence from Sheol. With the Torah, we will free their existence from hell. Sheol is known as hell. We will discuss about hell later, but Sheol is the place where you go when you die. Okay, so here that's the proper connection of the word stick. It's not stick. It says it's different. Just a wooden stick from a tree, like from the one that Chuck was getting from the trees of Tunungwa. No, it's not this kind of sticks or the sticks that they sell here in the library. No, those are not the holy sticks that we are supposed to use. The ones we are supposed to use is the Torah, the instructions of the Lord, the scepter of the king, the staff of the shepherd, the shevet. Shevet is the proper word, properly translated into this. So that's why we need to think first and then understand the Hebrew language and the Hebrew translations properly applied into the verses. So what do you think? Does it changes? Does it justify, does the Bible justify beating your kid with a stick whenever he's wrong? No, there's no way that actually, there's no way the Bible would justify that. Okay, so we have to change a lot. The thing is that we have been, and I actually myself, I say, well, I'm as an adult right now, functionally or dysfunctionally as I am, because of the beats that my dad and mom gave to me, either with a spoon, with a sandal, with the belt, with whatever they could use to beat me. I used to justify them as the way as what I was now, because I learned from them. But I always thought, what would happen if my mom and dad would use the instruction, the Torah from the Lord, in order to correct me? Would I be differently? Would I be a different adult as I am right now? Those are interesting questions, aren't they? So yeah, it's not justified to beat your kid with a stick. It's not justified. It's better to use the Torah in order to correct them. Okay, any thoughts on that? What do you think?
Yeah, Mo.
And I just have, go ahead, Chuck.
Oh, I was going to say, going back to, I guess, my original statement about stoning or anything else you find in the Bible. You know, when you start picking and choosing verses and developing any type of theology around just, you know, one verse by taking it completely out of context, not only of, you know, for in this example, the proverb that it's in, the book of Proverbs itself. I think if you really sat down and studied the entire book of Proverbs, you'd probably think, well, beating somebody with a stick is kind of contrary to the rest of what I've been reading here. When you start doing that without a full understanding, it always leads in a bad direction. You know, you can't ignore all the other verses about loving your child. And as Wolf was saying, with diligence and wisdom. You just can't throw out, the what is it? My grandmother used to say, the baby with the bathwater. You kind of have to take it all as as a whole. And yeah, I love the better translation. I think that that was great. Thanks, Moe.
Thank you, thank you. And yes, Steve, do you have another commentary?
Yeah, and I just want to comment too. And again, Moe, probably in your life, and again in my life, I come from that same kind of history as a child, and it's interesting in my head as I sit here now and studying the Torah too, that it repeats over and over again as we've gone through the Bible, that we need to be telling our children and teaching our children, and from generation to generation to generation. So I connect with you with what you're saying, is that I wonder if my parents would have used the Bible or used the Torah in a more because just picking up a belt or whatever they could find to hit you, it ended up causing problems later in my life with my parents, right? So although it leads to a better understanding of forgiveness and that in my own personal experience. But yeah, I just empathized, I guess, a little bit with you, wondering, what would
Who would I be?
what
Who
would that
will
have
I
been like?
be?
Yeah, well, would I be different? Exactly. Even I look at my own kids who are now young adults, with their and they've strayed away from the Lord. Would there have been a stronger ability to connect to them with the Bible as opposed to the way it is right now, right? But yeah, just the repetition in the Bible, to teach it from generation to generation to generation to generation. And I'm sure with your parents, and I know with my parents, my mom and dad just did what they saw their mom and dad doing, without the firm connection to the Bible and to even to Proverbs or anything that's in it. So anyways, yeah.
Thank you, Steve, for the comment. Yes, Todd, you just opened your mic.
Yeah, I gotta. I'm not quite sure how to explain what my thought process here is, but if you look at how you just translated just the simple word stick and how it goes to staff and Torah, right? There's been so many different translations of the word, and there's actually some pretty bad translations out there, because at the time they were translating these, of course, they were trying to reach the minds of the Gentiles and put it in a language they can understand. You know what I mean? So I think it's key that we go back to the original text. We have to go back to the Hebrew word, and to find the actual Hebrew word in the original meaning that it was meant to be. But you put it in that definition of being Torah, the stick rather, and the rod, how it is Torah. But look what society is doing. They're trying to remove Torah from everything and everybody. Why? Because they want chaos. They're trying to generate chaos around the world and no discipline, so that basically we stray from what God's true plan is. You know what I mean? One of the other things that came to my mind is, and I've got an older kid, right, who's living in Colorado, and he was brought up much differently than my younger. Now my oldest isn't what you would say. And we had one of those proverb written sticks at one time, and they actually used to sell them in the congregation we went to, in the bookstore. There's like, oh, okay, then that didn't work. So now he's one of those that's not trying to. He's trying to find his way, basically, and church isn't the thing that he really wants to do. That may be part of the reason. I've never really looked at it that way. My youngest, we didn't do that, and he's like the backbone to Bible class in a school. You know what I mean? He's the one that has all the answers. So there's a big difference. I mean, I can actually see it happen, in my life, exactly what we're talking about here, how, the rod one way, pulls a child away from the word, and you go the other route, and he's a Bible scholar. You know what I mean? It does make a difference, and I can tell you that from experience. So.
Okay, thank you, Todd, for sharing. Yes, we are with these small hints with the Hebrew, and of course the proper context, and whenever something in the Bible doesn't make sense, we just have to dig deeper in order to understand it better. And yeah, that's the Lord allowing us to become wise men. He's sharing his wisdom with us, but we have to think, we have to do the process, and we have to deal with all our past dysfunctionalities in order to achieve the wisdom that he wants us to have. Okay, so yeah, we have to go little by little and just correcting whenever correction is needed. Okay, so let's jump to the Bible verse to memorize for this week. Is Proverbs 1, chapter 1, verse 7. Is the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord. That's the beginning of wisdom. When I have fear of the Lord in my life, I can deny myself, and that's the beginning of wisdom. Because I can deny myself, because I understand that he is the creator, I am just a creature. So yeah, that would be the verse for this week. Okay, and let's talk about this week on the practical part of this session, to search for root causes of our dysfunctionalities. So how do we search for root causes? Like, just Wolf helped me out to trigger those bad memories of my life with a wooden spoon. It was huge. I mean, it was huge, like 3 foot long, maybe. Yeah, it was a huge, because here in Mexico, well, at least in some parts of Mexico, they make this dish called pozole, that they make it in big, gigantic pots. So they use these big wooden spoons. Yeah, that's what my mom used. And whenever we have a dysfunctionality in our personality or character, we need to go back to the root cause of it. When was the first time that it happened that now is giving these symptoms into my life? So the traditional root cause would be, if I see the fruit, I can go as deep as I can go to find the root cause. That's the word root, as the root of the tree. So sometimes we see just the fruit, the outcome of the dysfunctionality, but not just by taking off the fruits, we can say that we have changed. We can take off all the apples of a tree, and it doesn't change that it is an apple tree, right? It will always develop apple trees. We have to go all the way to the root and just dig out the root in order for us to change. That's the traditional way to approach to a root cause of a dysfunctionality. But let me share you a different approach, and actually a deeper approach than this one, which is the traditional way. It would be the iceberg diagram, the iceberg diagram. You know an iceberg, right? An iceberg, what you can see is just a small part of the iceberg floating over the ocean, above the ocean. But we know that icebergs are just way deeper down into the ocean. So if we approach the root causes of our dysfunctionalities this way, we can go even a little bit deeper, but even in a more functional way, so we can change. So what we see above the ocean is just the symptoms. And here the question to ask ourselves is, what is happening right now? Am I getting angry? Am I getting mad? Am I beating my kids now with a big spoon? What am I doing right now? What is the symptom right now? Whenever I find a symptom or the Lord shows me a symptom with his Ruach HaKodesh, he shows me that I have a symptom that I have to deal with. First of all, I have to just state what is happening with me right now. What am I doing wrong? Wrong not according to me, but wrong according to his word. Then we have to go below the ocean, below the symptom, and go deeper and find a conduct pattern. What has happened before? How it developed, how these symptoms has developed in my life. When I have done this thing before, maybe in a somehow different way, but when was this has happened before? When I felt the same way? When did I feel the same way? That is causing this symptom in my life. And after I found this pattern in my life, I have to go a little bit deeper and go to the root, but not root cause, but the root problem. The root problem would be which event in my life triggered this conduct pattern that now I'm having the symptoms. Maybe I remember the first time that my mom hit me with a wooden spoon. Maybe I go all the way that part. Maybe. Sometimes I do remember, sometimes I do not remember, but I know there's a root problem there. But we have to go a little bit deeper. And what does it mean to go a little bit deeper? That the root cause, the real root cause of all the dysfunctionalities that we have as an adult is that at some point a biblical principle was broken. Whenever we find the real cause, the real biblical principle that was broken in our lives, then this biblical principle can be restored. And when it's restored, all my life is different now. What was the biblical principle that was broken whenever my mom hit me with a wooden spoon? Well, there's no biblical principle here that states that you are justified to hit or beat your kid with a stick, right? We just stated that. That's the biblical principle that was broken. So now that I know that she was supposed to correct me with the Torah, now I can understand what the Lord has been doing with me. He's correcting me now with the Torah. And now I can know, and this biblical principle has been restored for so many years now. So I can see that I can become a different adult now with this biblical principle restored in my life. So whenever you have a symptom right now in your life, you have to go little by little, as deep as we are stating now, going to the real root cause, which is always a biblical principle broken. What has happened to our lives? The thing is that in this iceberg model, we see that when a biblical principle was broken, we can see these scuba diving guys here. These scuba diving guys are decisions that we have made about myself and decisions that have become consequences in my life. Let's say that I saw, or maybe myself, I have stolen something, and I make decisions about myself. Or maybe let me go back to the example of my mom beating me with a wooden spoon. I make decisions about myself. I am a bad kid. I'm not doing what my mom is telling me to do. I have to please her. Now I have to become different in order to please her. And now maybe because I'm now as an adult, maybe I'm pleasing my wife, and I don't know why am I pleasing my wife. Maybe I have to go, can you see the pattern here? Now I cannot stop pleasing my wife in whatever she tells me, even if it's functional or dysfunctional. I have to please her, and I don't know why. Well, I have to go deeper, 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 deeper until I find the biblical principle. And I have to deal with all these decisions made about myself, because the one beating me, it was my mom. But the decisions that I made was my own decisions. So I have to understand these decisions that I made about myself whenever these biblical principles were broken, and the decisions that I make about this root problem or event that triggered all this, and the conduct patterns. And when I had these conduct patterns, I made also more decisions until now the symptoms are the one expressing themselves and its consequences. So I'm sharing today with you guys this iceberg model to find out which biblical principles have been broken in our lives that make us the adults that we are today. In order, whenever we find the biblical principle that is broken, of course, it's a good idea to pray, to meditate, and to be willing to be restored by Him. Now to start restoring this biblical principle in our own lives, and to see Him as our loving Father, that He has been restoring these biblical principles in our own lives. And then we find different events and situations, we develop a different conduct pattern, and then we become a different adult, men or women, for whoever is watching this recording. Okay? So what do you think about it? Can you find something that you would like to be working on, and maybe some symptom that you haven't found a root problem or a real biblical principle broken? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Moe, I will share. And again,
Yes.
I find again in my life as I go back through this, and I think I've shared with you, but many years ago, when I was in Canada, we had met a similar. Alf Davis was his name, and he had a similar process where, and sometimes we go back to what we think is the real cause, where, and again, you've added where a biblical principle was broken, and when you go back to that, and then you find out maybe 4 days later, or maybe an hour later, or whatever, that you end up doing the same thing, then you really haven't gone back to what the real cause is, and you need to go back and keep on searching until you can find the real cause. Because once you find the real cause, my understanding is that the behavior should really change, or there should be a light, and a light go on in your head that says, okay, now I understand better. And in Alf Davis's situation, depending on the severity of it, but in all cases, he says you need to invite Jesus into that moment when you find the real cause, and that was his thing, bringing Jesus into that moment. Whether it was, again, in your case, and in my case, sometimes the physical abuse or the verbal abuse, and you bring it in where it's made an effect. But yeah, I at my age, again, it's always the journey of life is a hard journey, right? And yeah, we're all broken, and but the important thing is to be always working on becoming more like Jesus, I guess, is the reality, more like Yeshua. So yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you, Steve. Don't forget about the scuba divers here in the model, because sometimes I've seen it, because sometimes we even go to the biblical principle that is broken, and the biblical principle is being restored, but we have to also change the decisions about ourselves, and the consequences about those decisions would be different. So we also have to deal with the decisions we made about ourselves, or maybe about others, but we have to change the decisions. Okay, that I'm not a bad kid now. I was doing my best, and I decide differently upon myself. I make different decisions about myself, and that also helps to the process of being a better like Messiah, most like him, most like him. Okay. Any other commentary that you want to make, guys? So this is the homework for this week, or maybe the rest of our lives, to keep looking for biblical principles broken and taking different decisions and allowing those biblical principles to be restored in our lives. Yes, Wolf?
Yeah, just I want to kind of join Steve's thought. Hey, life is hard, but it's hard for all of us. In the end, we're all responsible for our own lives. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. We get to decide how we respond now. And this aware, the seeking awareness of why things happen and everything. I mean, in the end, we have to forgive all the people that, made missteps because they were overwhelmed parents with children that they weren't really ready to deal with, or they didn't have the biblical basis to do it correctly. So we forgive all that. We replace those things with the Bible, with the Torah. Like you said, Yeshua or the Father becomes your father, not your earthly father, but basically, and now we look there for the basis of our actions, the basis of our life, the decisions we make, and try to form those on biblical principles. But again, we're all responsible for making that process happen, and everybody has to go through that. Either you go through it or you don't, but then the result is what you put into it. So if you don't do the work, then you don't get the benefit of relieving yourself of any of that stuff that you had from the past. You can just continue to drag that along with you, or you can kind of find a way to cut yourself away from that, separate yourself from it, that it doesn't affect you anymore. And again, you're going to the Father or Yeshua to be the basis of your life, to be the source of the things the decisions you make, and where you go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolf. You just nailed it. Two things that you just mentioned is, number one, responsibility. We are the only one responsible to go deeper into the root cause, the real root cause. We are responsible for them. Maybe we have a therapist or somebody here in the community that we can share, and we can just help you go through this process yourself. But we are responsible of going as deep as looking for the biblical cause, and that's when sharing becomes helpful, because we need somebody else's eyes and somebody else's understanding and wisdom that comes from the Lord, in order to go this deeper and to find the biblical root causes. But we are responsible for the change. And another ingredient that you just mentioned is forgiveness. Forgiveness is the one vehicle that brings us deeper. Whenever we give forgiveness to someone, for whatever has happened, we can go deeper. We can go deeper. And forgiveness is also what makes us go to a different person. To forgive ourselves, forgive the others, and to understand, for a full understanding of our lives and how we can become different. Thank you, Wolf, for the commentary too. And yes, Chuck, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Moy. Just a quick thank you. I've looked at well, anyway, the idea that you mentioned, that once you find the real cause, you identify which biblical principle was broken. For example, you'd mentioned the wooden spoons, and after that you had said something that it wasn't necessarily your mother with the wooden spoons you needed to change, because obviously that's something, you can't go back in the past and change your mother, but you can change the decisions that you made based on those things, and all those decisions are yours. You own those decisions, right? Many years ago, and when I was a young man, I had a a personal coach, let's call him Bubba Pratt. Thank you so much for all the things you taught me, Bubba. If you're out there listening. But one of the things he taught me as a young man, and I've kept this to my heart my entire life, and I try to teach it to my children, was that, you know, there's only one thing in life that you really truly own. Everything else can be taken away from you in a blink of an eye. Your health, your wealth, your freedom, everything. Okay. But the one thing you truly own are your emotions. Okay. And how you're going to react to things. Okay. You know, there are some people, if you were a Mike Tyson and a professional fighter, I'm sure if somebody walked up and punched him in the nose, he'd probably get a smile on his face, just like Moe is right there. It wouldn't bother him a bit. he'd probably get a little excited about that. Most people would react differently, not because necessarily the pain, but because of the emotions inside them. So one of the things he taught me was, you know, people are always giving emotions to each other. Okay. They're always giving each other gifts. Some of the gifts are good, some of the gifts are bad. Okay. It's your decision and your right to decide which gifts you're going to accept and which gifts you're going to reject. Or in this case, going back in the past and discovering the real root cause of why you act the way that you act today or feel the way that you feel today. Obviously, you can't change the past, but you can change those decisions. And I would say probably the best way to change those decisions is deciding not to accept those gifts you were giving in the past, which I just added in the middle of the study, another layer to what Bubba taught me years ago, because I've always taken that in the present moment, right? I've never actually thought about, I can use that, the things that happened 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? But just like you can choose to accept those gifts or not accept those gifts, you can choose, even if you have accepted in the past, to return it. You don't have to keep carrying it around with you, or to bring that into a more up-to-date example, I think, for all of us who are trying to follow the Torah. Who has been at a friend's house and they have, just with a great big loving smile on their face, offered you the ham sandwich that they prepared so lovingly, and they're just so happy to give it to you, and we have different ways to react to it, right? We could berate them with the fact that they're breaking a Torah principle, and I've tried that. That doesn't work very well. Or we could just decide not to accept it and say, "Oh no, actually, I'm full. I ate before I came, but those potato chips look wonderful." And just not accept that. So I think we also have to look at, how we decide not to accept those things, and we have to accept them with forgiveness and love, as you mentioned. And from that point, we can start changing the decisions that we make. So I guess what I would like to say is you have to, see that real cause, the biblical principle that was broken, and then, just as we were talking about, the stick, or the rod, as it's translated many times. You kind of have to take a little wisdom and some time to think about that, and think about the real things that you were accepting, the real things that were happening, those emotions that made you or taught you to make the decisions that you still continue to follow in life, if you follow me, and how to change them, and to change them in a healthy way, not in I don't know how you would say it, a bad way or a non-functional way, such as, getting mad at somebody because they offered you a ham sandwich, instead of smiling and saying thank you, and coming up with a reason why, but you would prefer not to eat that ham sandwich, right? And then, so that's would kind of be my perspective on that mechanism of creating that change, if anything I said made any sense at all.
Thank you, Chuck, for
It
sharing.
made some sense in my mind.
Thank you for sharing it. Yes, let's not forget about the main goal in our lives is to fulfill the divine purpose or the divine reason of why we are here in this existence, and to become more like Messiah. Remember that he was the one living with all the biblical principles restored. No biblical principle was broken in him. So he's teaching us to live this way with all these biblical principles restored, and living a different life. In order for doing that, we must deny ourselves, and denying ourselves is also denying our past. But we not just by saying, "Oh well, I just forget about my past." No, we have to work with this past and all the decisions made. So yeah, we have to change them according to the biblical principles in order to be fully restored and fully healed. Thank you, Chuck, for sharing this. And we have Wolf here also with his hand raised. Yes, Wolf.
Yeah, two things jumped out at me as we're going through this. The one is how important forgiveness is. I mean, it's probably the primary thing that we can do to clear and release the past. If you don't have forgiveness, and I can only know from example, knowing some people that have passed on in while they're still holding on to all their anger and resentment, and they never get past it, and trying to help them find a way to release that. In reality, they're holding on to it like it's some kind of treasure, that this is so important to the fact that they were wronged in the past and that they just can't get past that, just can't let that go. And then they just drag that throughout their lives. Part of it is because they don't have a biblical perspective. So, using Chuck's example of the ham sandwich, again, we have to have perspective on the situation, but we also have to perspective on ourselves. Remember, we talked about that. I am not the center of the universe, and everything isn't about me. So if we have a proper biblical perspective, we are not too important. We're not, dysfunctional. We have our place, and we have to fulfill our divine perspective. But if we have perspective on ourselves, then the ham sandwich is no big deal. I mean, it's not a problem. I'm not so offended by that. Just, everybody is where they are. They know what they know. And we don't know what we don't know. So the person that, offers you that sandwich, and even if they did know, and even if they did it out of just some kind of malicious thing, again, in life, that's nothing. That's a nothing. How can I be offended by that? So again, if we have proper perspective on ourselves, we can forgive readily. And if it's a situation where somebody's doing something malicious, I just take myself out of the situation. I don't have time for this. There's more important things than, me, giving somebody a hard time for giving me a ham sandwich. I don't care. It's a nothing thing. So forgiveness just lightens us. It makes it so that we can move through life effortlessly because we're not dragging all these anger and resentment and things, then all of a sudden the wooden spoon thing becomes a funny story to tell people, not so much a psychological or emotional scar. Because if I think back to my parents, they were overwhelmed by life. They were both in their early 20s. Dad was working from dark to dark. Mom couldn't get out of her own way because she had her own emotional, psychological issues. So for them overreacting in a situation and possibly, beating their children, then that was just where they were at the time because of, first of all, their background, their parents, like you said, all that, and they're still dragging all that with them. They couldn't get out of their own way. So it's easy to forgive that because if you look back, then, I don't know if I could have done better in that situation based on what they had. So forgiveness is a great tool, and it's actually an easy thing. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. So let all that stuff go. Move through life. Don't take offense. And, if you're in a situation that's dysfunctional, just take yourself out of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolf. Thank you. And yeah, we have to be very grateful with our Lord that He's allowing us to do these processes with love, compassion, forgiveness, also with faith, fidelity. He's allowing us to do this process ourselves. So we really need to be very grateful with Him because he's allowing us to become different. And yes, this is him doing his divine purpose in our lives. So yeah, we also have to be very thankful with him. Yes, Steve, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, two things that have come, just from Wolf's comments too, but I'll address the Wolf thing. Yes, forgiveness is a big thing, and a personal story I held. I was estranged and distant from both my parents for 22 years, and because of the lack of forgiveness, at times I had thought I'd forgiven them, and through my friend Reg, I was able to recognize that forgiveness wasn't. I hadn't forgiven, and now that I forgave before my father passed away. It was just probably 6 or 7 months before my father passed away that I was able to connect with him in a quite a beautiful way. But what I was thinking as you were talking, Wolf, was again God's faithfulness, and I'm able to see a fruit from this forgiveness. Because I shared a few weeks ago that I had been reading, I started reading the Bible with my mom, and it is one of the most beautiful things that has happened in my life. My mom being the age she is, she's never read the Bible. We'll be actually tonight. We finished Genesis tonight, and it's been an emotional, exciting time for her to hear the Bible read to her, the way that we're sharing and talking about it, and how God has blessed me with the little piece of knowledge I have about the Bible. But to my mom, it's been a beautiful, and for me, I just never would have ever thought of it. And so I'm so thankful for that little bit of fruit that has come from my forgiveness to them, and to my mom, and to my dad, right? And I'd also like just to comment, Moe, a little bit on, again, going back to what you were saying about, I had a counselor years and years ago when my first marriage was in a mess, and obviously your kids are affected, and I had young kids. They were like 11 and 7, and 10 and 6, and I can remember a counselor telling me, a Christian counselor, and she had said to me that, Steve, it's good for you. And I only realized this now later in my life, but she said, good for you, because making a decision not to beat your kids, again, you even like what you said, Todd, you see the difference in the two kids you have, your two sons, but making that decision to beat your kids, or not to hit your wife, or not to yell at your wife, or those kinds of decisions, she said, those are good, good decisions. But what I realized, Moy, as you were talking, was that we carry the damage that is more psychological, or not psychological, but more emotional, and then our reactions. And again, a good example again about the Mike Tyson thing, and that where those emotions we react, and it's based on some of those physical punishments that we were kind of put on us, and we didn't, we don't understand that there's other side effects from that. Of course you can not hit your kids, but you still might be reacting and doing things that are dysfunctional in relation, like you were saying, well, you need to please your parents. I'm a bad kid. Those are, thank you again for opening up all those childhood wounds in me also today. So, it is a hard process, but thanks be to God that again, like I shared earlier, at my age, not as an old man, but as a man just searching, that there is healing in the Lord as you go through your entire life, that you should never stop searching. So yeah, thank you for the commentaries this morning too, guys. It's been really good for me, and yeah, wonderful chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve, for your commentaries too. And let's go with Todd. Yes, Todd.
So I find it very interesting how the Lord works. Okay, so and everything, I don't know why everything he does it the way he does it. I mean, he just does things and reveals things at times that just blow my mind sometimes. But anyway, so I want to take you to this week's portion. if we can, just for a second, right? So this week's Pedashah. This week's Pedashah was all about, or last week's Pedashah rather, was all about the components used for the building of the tabernacle, right? So in each component, when you study the portion, deeply, each component represents a certain aspect of life, right? The acacia wood represents something, the gold, the silver, the bronze, all of it has representations to something, right? So, and all of that was to build the tabernacle. But what are we here to do? We're to help build. We don't have a tabernacle or a temple anymore, right? I mean, we are the temple. So we're here and we're called to help build his kingdom, right? So, and that starts at home, pretty much. But what component are you? What component are you that's going to help build the kingdom? And where does it start? It starts here in Torah, for example, right? And it starts with us being the priests of our house and how we raise our children and our families, So I just find it very interesting how things lead into other things. And Mo, this all came to my head because you had mentioned something earlier that we were actually talking about last night at dinner with a pastor that we were dining with, and it's just how everything just rolls together, But I would challenge all of you to try to figure out what component you are. What component are you to help build his kingdom? You know what I mean? And it all has to do with the staff by guiding the flock and the sheep in the direction they need to go to keep them on the right path, And it starts with us. That's where it starts, I don't know if that relates, but that's what hit me throughout those commentaries.
Thank you, Todd, for the commentary too. And yeah, because maybe in the past I've read that portion too, and I say, oh well, what is the purpose of going into so much detail? But yeah, it has a purpose. It has a purpose, and yeah, sometimes we have to go into our lives in such a detail because we have to be fully restored in order to be part, because we are part of the big picture here being the establishment of the kingdom of God in the earth. Okay, yeah, so that's why it's important for us to be fully restored in order to be functional according to his word. Thank you, Todd, for the commentary. And yes, Wolf, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, I'll keep it short here. Just so when I think about it, and I think about the situations in daily life when we get swept up in the whirlwind of life and things get kind of chaotic or confusing, and I have to distill things down, it's keeping the biblical perspective. First of all, I'm not trying to please people. The only thing I have to please is Abba. So according to the word. And then if I distill it down and I keep perspective on myself, my place relative to the word, then it makes it simple. Then basically anytime I'm in a chaotic or confusing situation, it's what do I need to do is the next right thing. So whatever would be biblical, whatever would be the next right thing, that's where my focus is, not on pleasing people, not on, whatever the situation is. So that just simplifies it for me. Perspective, proper perspective, a functional perspective of myself, a functional perspective of the situation regarding to the word, and then what to do is always the next right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolf. Thank you. Yeah, the right perspective will be looking myself through his eyes. How does he look at me? What is his perspective on me? If he shares that with me, I have the proper perspective on myself. Thank you, Wolf, for the commentary. And yes, Chuck, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, guys, I just like to share an experience, I think, from the other perspective, from the perspective of the parent or the situation that broke a Torah principle and caused damage and in our lives or somebody's lives. I was very close with my father when I was younger, very, very close. We did everything together, right? My dad was the type of dad that, would pretend he was taking me to school in the morning, but instead we'd go fishing. It was great. We were really close. And then when him and my mother divorced, I won't go into the details, but I end up not being with either one of them. I end up being on the other side of the country. And I didn't see my father again for 20, 30 years almost. Right. And one day I was talking to my sister, who happened to have a visitor who was a friend from when we were kids. And they asked me about my dad. And I said, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in 30 years or so. And when they went home, they talked to somebody from our hometown. Long story short, in about a month, the message had gotten through to my father of where I was at. And I got a phone call. And he was a couple of states away, and we talked for a few minutes. And he asked if it was okay if he came by to visit. And I said, well, yeah, sure. I wasn't really sure how this was going to go, but he showed up. 24 hours later, I drove throughout the night with an aunt that I never even knew I had. And at the front door, and I'd kind of forgiven him, over the years, little by little. But like I think Steve said, he thought he'd forgiven, but he really probably hadn't forgiven, right? And that was kind of my situation at the front door. And I saw this very old man, okay, that I had not seen in a long time. And instantly all that, I guess, grudge just kind of disappeared. And I really truly had a moment of pure forgiveness, right? And I gave him a hug, and a big bear hug, and welcomed him inside, like, we'd just spent the past 30 years together fishing, right? And he didn't know how to react. He didn't know how to react. He was in our house for about a day, and he was very silent. And the kids would play with them, and he'd play with the kids, and you could literally see the physical change in the man from receiving all of this forgiveness, right? And that seed grew into, he'd been estranged from his entire family his entire life for 60 years, since his 20s. And it caused a chain reaction that caused him to get in touch with the rest of his family and aunts and uncles of mine that he hadn't seen in 50, 60 years. And he died just a couple of years after this. But he went from a life, as you can imagine, he was married 5 times, had kids all over the place, was estranged from all of them, was estranged from his own family. And you could see how that forgiveness had caused that chain reaction, so that the last 3 years of his life, he was able to rebuild, or maybe not him, but the Lord was able to rebuild all of those things that he had lost so many years ago. And he ended his life with, a dozen grandkids that were coming to see him, brothers and sisters and family, and things that he'd never really had before. And so I think if we look at these root causes, it's really easy for us to think of me. I need to change these things for me, and then I'll be better. But sometimes it's not necessarily the change in us that makes ourselves and our lives better. It's that simple act of pure forgiveness that changes the other person, that then allows us to change as well. So it was just something that happened in my life that I thought this would be a good time to share. Kind of looking at it from the other point of view, but it's one of the I can honestly say, and it was one of the true miracles. And when you hear about all the different steps and passes that miraculously happen to bring those events into play. You could truly see the hand of the Lord in every little step along the way. As you said, or as we said, when you invite the Lord into those problems with you to help you fix them, it can really fix, he can obviously fix everything from both sides of that problem and create a healthy, functional relationship for both sides of the problem. Man, that was all.
Thank you, Chuck, for sharing this amazing testimony. Yeah, because most of the times we don't really know the effect of an inner change. We might think that it only affects ourselves, but it doesn't only affect ourselves, but it will create a reaction throughout the world, and that's expanding the kingdom of heaven or being part of the expansion, and everything of this is allowed by him, by our Lord. So yeah, thank you, because sometimes our small changes in our lives can cause an amazing reaction that we are not even aware of, that we are not, maybe we will not witness it by ourselves, but it does make a difference. So that's why we have to keep continuing changing ourselves according to our Messiah and to his word, because we don't even know the impact that might create in life and existence itself. So even small details, dealing with anger, dealing with sadness, dealing with our dysfunctionalities, it will not only affect ourselves, it will impact others in ways that we don't even know. So let's continue with that. So let's wrap it up, my friends, and let's thank the Lord for all the blessings that we have received today, because those are way amazing blessings. So let me pray, and we finish this session, okay? Thank you, Lord, for being our loving shepherd. Thank you for having all this mercy and forgiveness for us. And thank you for letting us work in ourselves, denying ourselves, but also acquiring some wisdom from you. So we become more faithful to you and we continue to change our lives. Thank you, Lord, for all your word that it's present in our lives. And let us continue fulfilling the divine purpose of our existence. Thank you, Lord, for being with us and supplying all our needs that we have. And thank you, Lord, for the blessing of having this group of men that you are using our own lives and our own past in order for others to have to receive also your love and mercy, maybe through us. Thank you, Lord, for using us and guiding us through all this way. And let us have, if that's your will, let us have this functional week in order for continuing to look at you all the times, in the sunrise, in the sunset, and in every way, and every person that we cross our paths with. Thank you, Lord, for all the blessings that we already receive. Let us be honest with ourselves and transparent to you, and teach us how to see ourselves through your eyes. Thank you, Lord, for all these blessings. In Yeshua's name, amen and amen. Well, thank you, my friends, and have a blessed and functional week. See you next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Shabbat tov.
Shabbat tov.